Have you ever noticed you can go from handling absolute chaos at work to sitting in your own living room completely unable to relax? Not tired, not calm, just on edge. You're off duty, but your brain isn't. It's still scanning, still listening, still waiting for something bad to happen. And the weird part, most of you don't realize you're doing it. It's a normal habit. You sit facing the door in restaurants. You people watch, and you anticipate danger. You hear every noise in the house at night. You don't fully relax in crowds, and you wake up exhausted, even after sleeping. Then eventually you start thinking, maybe this is just who I am. No, it's not. You're in the danger zone, and what you're experiencing has a name. It's called hypervigilance. Hey, I'm retired Sergeant Danny Kuhn. Welcome to Bulletproof First Responder, where first responders grow stronger in faith, sounder in mind, and unbreakable in purpose. Today, we're going to break down hypervigilance, what it actually is, what's happening in your brain, why first responders get trapped in it, how the adrenaline cycle becomes addictive, how this can eventually lead to post-traumatic stress injury, and how to start coming down off the job before it destroys your peace, your relationships, and your identity. Because the truth is, a lot of first responders aren't weak. They are an overloaded system that never powered down. Nobody really tells you this when you get hired. They teach you things like tactics, policy, crime scene management, and officer safety. But nobody sits you down and says, this job is going to rewire how your nervous system operates. Because it does. Every shift reinforces the same message. Stay alert, pay attention, assume danger, react quickly. And over time, your brain adapts exactly the way it was designed to. That adaptation becomes hypervigilance. Hypervigilance is more than just being alert. Hypervigilance is simple. It's your brain saying, don't miss the next threat. It's a chronic state of heightened awareness where your brain constantly scans for danger. Your body shifts into survival mode. Your heart rate increases, muscles tighten, adrenaline rises, and cortisone levels spike. And here's the important part. A lot of this happens automatically. You don't choose it. Your nervous system does. And it says, danger is possible. Stay ready. So it turns everything up. Awareness, reaction speed, sensory input, and pattern recognition. You notice things faster. You react quicker. You are harder to catch off guard. That's why it works so well on duty. But off duty, that same system doesn't know how to power down. That's why even on a slow shift, you can still end the day exhausted because your body stayed partially activated for hours. Now I want you to picture something, a curve, not a flat line, a curve. At the top of that curve is where you operate on duty, on high alert. You're pumped up, focused, sharp. That's performance mode. But the problem is, after that peak, there's a drop. And that drop is where a lot of you live off duty. Let's break it down. On the left side of the curve is the on-duty alert, the on switch. You're tactically focused. You're ready for any threats. You are at your peak. Your body is pumping high levels of adrenaline into your system. You're constantly searching for danger. You're in the hypervigilance zone. On the right side of the curve is the off-duty switch. You're exhausted, irritable, and feeling detached, asking yourself, why do I feel off? Not fully relaxed, not fully engaged, just flat. Here's a part that most people miss. Hypervigilance is not the problem. It's necessary. It keeps you alive. It helps you do the job. The problem is there's no built-in off switch. Your body doesn't automatically reset when the shift ends. It tapers, then crashes, then repeats over and over again. And that's the cycle, up and down. And if you don't start managing it, you start living in extremes. Here's the part nobody teaches you early on. Your nervous system doesn't care about your schedule. It doesn't recognize the shift is over. It recognizes we've been exposed to threat after threat after threat. So it builds a default setting. Stay alert, even at home, even in bed, even in places that are actually safe. That's why you sit facing the door. You scan crowds automatically. You wake up at small noises, and you can't fully relax. That's not paranoia. It's conditioning. Now let's go deeper. People sometimes call this survival wiring the reptilian brain. That term is simplified neuroscience, but the concept still helps explain what's happening. This is the ancient survival part of your nervous system. Its job is not happiness, not peace, not emotional connection. Its job is survival. The system evolved when humans dealt with immediate threats, predators, attacks, starvation, or physical danger. Back then, the stress was temporary. You escaped danger, then your body recovered. But today, stress never fully shuts off, especially for first responders. Now, the threats are trauma, exposure, violence, shift work, sleep deprivation, constant stimulation, financial stress, and emotional overload. And the nervous system reacts to all of it as danger. So let's talk about the exact moment the tone drops or the hot call comes out. That's when your heart jumps straight into your throat. Your stomach tightens. Your hands get sweaty. Your vision sharpens. Your focus narrows instantly. Every first responder listening to this knows that feeling. You don't have to think about it. Your body just does it. That is your sympathetic nervous system slamming on the gas pedal. That's fight or flight, your built-in survival system. You see, thousands of years ago, this system kept human beings from getting killed by predators. Today, it activates the second you hear dispatch tones, pull up to a chaotic scene, walk into a fire, handle a critical patient, clear a building, or hear screaming over the radio. The second that switch flips, your biology changes. Immediately, your pupils dilate so you can see better. Your heart starts pumping blood into your major muscle groups. Breathing speeds up. Adrenaline floods your body. Your reaction time sharpens, and your body starts shutting down anything it doesn't need for survival in that moment, even digestion. Because your nervous system doesn't really care about processing that donut, burrito, or ice cream you just ate when it thinks your life might be on the line. And operationally, that system is incredible. It keeps people alive. But here's the trap. Most of us do not stand on the gas pedal for 5 minutes. We stay there for 12 hours, 24 hours, 40 hours, and sometimes entire careers. And the body was never designed to live permanently in the red zone. If you've been a first responder for more than a minute, then you've probably heard of a retired Pima County Sheriff's Lieutenant, Dr. Kevin Gilmartin. And if you haven't read Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement yet, you need to, because Gilmartin explains something that hits first responders harder than almost anything else. He calls it the hypervigilance biological roller coaster. And once you understand this, you start seeing it everywhere in your own life. Here's how it works. Most civilians live using what Gilmartin calls probability thinking. They assume, I'll probably get home safe today. Nothing bad will probably happen. But as first responders, we can't think that way. Operationally, we live in possibility thinking. We have to think, what's possible? What's the threat? What's the worst case scenario? What am I missing? That mindset keeps us alive. But it's also what keeps your nervous system running at 110% constantly. Every traffic stop, every medical call, every suspicious movement, every unknown scene. Your body stays flooded with adrenaline and cortisol with heightened awareness. And honestly, on duty, it can feel really incredible. You feel sharp, focused, fast, dialed in, alive. It's a rush. That's the top of the roller coaster. That's the peak of hypervigilance. But here's where biology gets involved. Applying the third law of motion by Sir Isaac Newton, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Those in full-blown hypervigilance will crash and burn hours after the shift ends, because what goes up must come down. And this is where many of us get blindsided. Because when the shift ends, your nervous system doesn't just slowly drift back to normal, it crashes hard. You walk through your front door, and suddenly you feel exhausted, detached, apathetic, emotionally unavailable, and irritable. You sit on the couch, flip channels, scroll through your phone, and give one-word answers. Not because you don't love your family, not because you're a bad spouse or parent, but because biologically your brain has burned through its chemical fuel reserves. Eventually, your system starts paying the price. Your sleep gets wrecked, patience disappears, blood pressure climbs, recovery slows down, and relationships suffer. Emotionally, you stop coming all the way back down. That's the part most families don't see, but don't understand. That's the off-duty crash. And this is where the parasympathetic nervous system becomes critical, because your body is desperately trying to slam on the brake pedal after being stuck at full throttle all shift long. The problem is, many of you never fully recover before the next activation starts again. Then, over time, something dangerous starts happening. Your entire identity shrinks into the uniform, and eventually, the job becomes your entire personality. That's where isolation deepens, relationships suffer, health declines, and the roller coaster starts controlling your life instead of the other way around. And you know, it's really exhausting to view the entire world as a potential threat. Now let's talk about what's happening inside your head. Deep in your brain is the amygdala. Think of it as your alarm system or smoke detector. Its job is simple: detect danger. The amygdala scans constantly for threats, aggression, fear, or risks. For first responders, this system becomes highly trained. You start seeing things civilians miss, like body language, suspicious behavior, tone changes, environmental danger cues, or micro movements. That's operational conditioning. The problem is that the amygdala does not always distinguish well between real danger, possible danger, and remembered danger. That's huge. Now enter the hippocampus. The hippocampus helps organize memory and context. It tells you that happened then, not now. Under chronic stress, especially repeated trauma exposure, the amygdala becomes more reactive while the hippocampus struggles to calm things down. So now the brain becomes better at detecting threats and worse at recognizing safety. That's the core of hypervigilance. Let's talk about PTSI. Post-traumatic stress injury happens when the brain struggles to properly process traumatic experiences. The trauma no longer feels like something that happened. Instead, it feels like something is still happening. That's why post-traumatic stress injury symptoms can sometimes include nightmares, intrusive thoughts, hypervigilance, exaggerated startle response, flashbacks, or emotional reactivity. The nervous system stays trapped in survival mode. Now, not everyone exposed to trauma develops PTSI, but cumulative exposure absolutely matters. Now here's the part most of us never hear about or even know about. Your body has another operating mode, not fight or flight, just the opposite, the parasympathetic nervous system, or what people sometimes call rest and digest or feed and breed. Now, feed and breed sounds almost like a joke, but biologically, it matters a lot because this system is basically the body's brake pedal. Parasympathetic nervous system is what slows everything back down. It conserves energy, slows the heart rate, aids digestion, supports recovery, promotes sleep, fosters emotional connection, enhances intimacy, and supports healing. This system is responsible for bringing the body back toward balance, back toward homeostasis, back toward recovery. And this is critical. The parasympathetic nervous system tells your body, you survived, you're safe now. Unfortunately, you spend very little time in this state because your body gets conditioned to stay activated, stay alert, and stay prepared. So even at home, the nervous system keeps operating like danger is still nearby. Come on. That's why some of us can't fully relax. We stay uncomfortable in silence and disconnected at home. We stay emotionally guarded. We struggle to sleep deeply or become impatient and irritable. Because biologically, our body is prioritizing survival over recovery. And here's the dangerous part. The body cannot fully heal while it still believes it's under threat. So when someone stays trapped in chronic fight or flight long enough, eventually things start breaking down. Sleep, emotional regulation, relationships, physical recovery, mental clarity, patience, and connection. The armor never comes off. And honestly, a lot of us have become experts at survival while becoming strangers to recovery. This is where hypervigilance starts bleeding into home life. You stop feeling emotionally present. You become short-tempered, detached, withdrawn, not because you don't care, because your nervous system is prioritizing survival, not connection. That's why many of us say, I feel more normal at work than I do at home. Home requires vulnerability, calmness, and stillness, and those things start feeling unfamiliar. Over time, your social circle gets smaller. You stay around your work family because they're people who understand dark humor, people who understand the job, people who understand you. But outside of that, you start disconnecting, and slowly the job stops being what you do and becomes who you are. It is your identity, and that's dangerous. When the crash feels bad, some of you chase the rush again. That can look like alcohol abuse, chasing overtime, getting involved in risky behaviors, having extramarital affairs, and chasing constant stimulation. Not because you're weak, because you're trying to avoid emotional shutdown. And over time, that cycle can become destructive. Let me say this to you directly. A lot of you don't realize you're injured. Operationally, you still function well. You can still work, you still perform, and you still show up. Why? Because you're highly trained. But you still tell everyone that I'm okay lie. Meanwhile, your relationships are strained. Your sleep is wrecked. You are emotionally exhausted. You feel isolated to the point where you don't recognize yourself off duty anymore. That's not weakness. That's cumulative stress. The hypervigilance cycle isn't a flaw. It's a biological adaptation to repeated exposure. But if you don't manage it, it becomes a trap. You live on the highs and crash on the lows. And somewhere in between, you lose your sense of normal. This is where most people fail. They never decompress, never process, never reset. Call after call, shift after shift, then straight into home life. So here's your debrief. After your shift, before you walk into your house, pause. Ask yourself, what am I still carrying? Not 5 years ago, today. Then breathe in. 4 seconds. Exhale. 6 seconds out. Tell your nervous system, we survived, we can relax now. Then get some movement in. Your system is loaded with stress hormones, so go for the short walk. Lift some weights, stretch it out, burn off what your body is holding. And before you walk inside, pause one more time. Touch something and tell yourself, work stays out here. Because if you don't create separation, the job walks into your house with you every time. So now for those who carry faith into this job, this matters. Ephesians 6:11 and 12 instructs us to put on the full armor of God and to stand firm against evil strategies. Our high-stress work is a spiritual battlefield, so we rely on spiritual strength, righteousness, and truth to withstand the darkness we witness daily. So just as you put on your physical armor, your protective gear, vest, helmets, gun belts to keep you safe physically, you must intentionally dress your mind and spirit with faith, truth, and God's righteousness to handle daily trauma and dangers. The goal is to stand firm, to remain steadfast, alert, and mentally secure, refusing to let the trauma or evil encountered cause you to succumb to fear or despair. We're good at the physical part. We know how to suit up. We know how to prepare for the physical battle. But here's the part most people miss. Our physical armor is meant for the fight. The problem is, many of us never take the physical armor off. Physical armor is for combat, not for every moment of your life. It is the full armor of God that will protect us. In his letter to the church of Philippi, the Apostle Paul wrote, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God." Philippians 4:6. That doesn't mean ignore danger. It's telling us to combat high stress, dangerous situations by replacing anxiety with prayer, petition, and thanksgiving. It serves as a reminder that prayer is the first line of defense, not a last resort, bringing peace, protecting mental health, and providing strength during emergencies. It means you were never designed to live permanently inside your head. If this episode hit home, it's because somewhere in this you recognize yourself, maybe for the first time. You're not crazy, you're not weak, and you're not alone. Your brain adapted to repeated exposure. The problem is nobody taught you how to come back down afterwards, but you can learn. You do not need to lose your edge. You just need to learn when to put it down. If you're dealing with hypervigilant right now, you're not weak, you're not broken, you're changed. You're responding exactly how someone would after years of doing a job most people couldn't handle for a week. You just need to reset the hard drive, because the goal is not just surviving the job, it's being able to live outside of it. If this episode helped you, send it to another first responder, because a lot of people are carrying this without understanding what it is. And if you're struggling right now, talk to somebody. Do not carry this alone. For law enforcement and their families, call CopLine, 1-800-CopLine, 1-800-267-5463. For firefighters, medics, and their families, call the Fire EMS Helpline, 1-800-731-FIRE, 1-800-731-3473. Or call or text the National Suicide Hotline at 988. If you get this, hit the like, follow, or subscribe button wherever you're listening. That way you won't miss what's coming next. Share this with someone you trust, your partner, your crew, your squad, your station, because this conversation needs to happen. And if this episode meant something to you, leave a quick rating or review. That's how this message reaches those who need it but aren't looking for it yet. I'm retired Sergeant Danny Kuhn, and this is Bulletproof First Responder. Stay safe, and remember, coming home matters, because some calls don't stay at the scene.